Welcome to the Sound of Ideas from IdeaStream Public Media. I'm Stephanie Haney. Thanks for being with us. I hope all the moms out there had a good Mother's Day on Sunday. And on that topic, they say it takes a village to raise a child. For parents who don't have a built-in community, parenthood can be an isolating experience. It can come with a huge shift in a person's social life, from staying at home more to less time talking to other adults, exhaustion from caring for an infant, and possibly feelings of postpartum anxiety or depression. Studies show that establishing friendships with other parents going through similar changes can help people adapt to this new stage of life. So how do parents find community? What resources are there in Northeast Ohio? And as the saying goes, if you build it yourself, will they come? Today, we're talking with parents about their journeys to finding community, and we'll meet people who have built their own villages of support. Joining me in studio, we have Sarah Andrzejczyk, owner and instructor of Fit for Mom Beechwood Shaker Heights. This is an organization that connects moms through fitness and social events. Sarah, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Stephanie.
We also have with us Naveed Kiani, co-host of the Chief Dad Officers podcast. Naveed, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
In studio also, we have Dr. Kate Psarakis. Kate has her PhD in community health education. She calls herself a village builder. She's the author of Through Her Eyes and the owner of Heartland Homestead in Oberlin. Welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me.
And also Tricia Katchmeyers, a facilitator with the Building a Village Parents Group. This is with the LGBT Community Center of Greater Cleveland. Thanks for being with us.
Great to be here.
If you want to be a part of this conversation, you can give us a call at 866-578-0903. You can also email us at soi@ideastream.org, or you can send us a message on Instagram. We're at The Sound of Ideas. Let's start with the memories that you all have from when you were new parents. Do you remember feeling lonely or isolated? Sarah, I'll start with you.
Yeah, for sure. I had, I'm not originally from Cleveland to begin with, so I'd moved here in 2010. And it takes time to get ready to get used to living in a new place. So I felt settled into the community within a couple years, but then a few years later, I had my baby. And it was like starting all over again. So I was planning to be a stay-at-home parent. And that first year, it was okay, but it was a struggle. I was going to the story times and the swim lessons and the music lessons and all of that. But those are all programming that's built for the baby, not necessarily the parent. So when I was out of state with my husband's relocated for a couple months, I found something called Stroller Strides, and I was immediately hooked. And I figured, why not bring it back here? Because again, like you said, when you're building it yourself, then you're able to give what you need for yourself and your kiddo, as well as bring it to the community.
Naveed, what was it like for you from what you remember being a first-time parent?
Yeah, so we were first-time parents rather during COVID. So I grew up in the UK, had met my now wife in New York, and she's a Cleveland girl. And we were umming and ahhing over where to, put down roots when we were expecting baby number one. Weren't obviously expecting a pandemic to coincide with that. And so we, air quote, temporarily came out to Cleveland and have never left. And if you think it's sort of isolating with the, amount of mom groups out there, there's very few dad groups that exist. And so, I kind of did a bit of searching. We had been through a whole bunch of moves, and there just wasn't really much in that community. So I had this idea for a podcast for dads that I thought, most people during COVID were launching podcasts, and we got thrown into the mix of having our first child. And those ideas kind of, I wouldn't say went away, but kind of being a frontline parent during the pandemic became priority number one. Then when my second daughter was born, all those same feelings came back again. Those feelings of, well, do other dads feel like they're not doing enough? Do other dads feel like they're being, useless in these moments? Do other dads feel like, they are able to partake or not partake, and having dad guilt with work and work-life balance and all that kind of stuff? So we thought, we'll build a community ourselves. We launched Chief Dad Officers a few years back now. And, it kind of morphed into something that was just three dads hanging out in a studio that we had built, to now having sort of tens of thousands of followers across Northeast Ohio and across the states. And it's been a great venture ever since.
Kate, what was it like for you in the early days of parenthood?
Yeah, I think initially I was a working mom. So I went to work and I had very little time in my life for like my mom identity. So my baby came to brunch, we went to happy hour. It was great. We lived in Columbus, which has a really wonderful professional parenting community. During COVID, I had my second son down in Florida and we decided to relocate back to Oberlin, which is where we still are. And for about in 2021, Oberlin was still very much slow reopening. And I found myself, I lived in Oberlin for about a year and hadn't made a single friend and was like, wow, like I feel wildly lonely and just very lost. And so those early days of parenting kind of came back around where you're kind of just talking to yourself most of the time. I would go like a day or two and my partner traveled. So I'd go a couple of days and be like, I don't know if I've actually spoken to like another grown up besides the children's librarian at the library. And like big shout out to the Oberlin Public Library because they are the village for our town. But the isolation and loneliness that you feel when you are, it can feel devastatingly hard just to get out of your house, like let alone to show up to another with another adult. So I think that isolation piece just was kind of woven through early childhood for me, but then it just became really apparent when we moved to a new spot and like could not find a village.
And Trisha, how about for you? Take us back to early parenthood and maybe how some of those feelings continue.
You know, when they say babies change everything, they're not joking. You know, you have this new, beautiful baby that you love so much, but you also have so much of your own identity that changes that you just don't, you can't be fully prepared for how those feelings, overtake you. And, even when you have a community that you live in, which I did, I had been in Cleveland almost 10 years by the time I had my first child. And, I had lots of friends, but none of them had babies. So I was by myself. I was married, but having that sense of having someone to turn to relate to, I had lost that. And your identity changing, and there's so much about identity in the queer community, and understanding how those two pieces can come together, and a reexamination of who you are, and trying to find a safe place to explore that is what we try to do with Building a Village.
If you're just joining us here on The Sound of Ideas, we are talking about parenthood and finding community, not only for new parents, but also as the parenting journey continues. And we have a panel here of people who have built their own communities in order to find that adult connection and support that studies show is very much needed in this phase of life. If you want to be a part of this conversation, the number is 866-578-0903. You can also email us at soi@ideastream.org, or you can send us a message on Instagram at The Sound of Ideas. Maybe you are aware of a community organization that you think might be helpful, or maybe you have a question for our panel, or just a story you'd like to share. We would love to hear from you. We have an email in from Carly. Carly writes, Cuyahoga County's Office of Early Childhood partners with 4 local libraries to provide a program called Family Space. It's a designated time for families with young children to play, be together, and find community. There's also trained staff there who can provide resources to new parents who may need help. And Carly writes, hope that this is helpful. So thank you very much for the note, Carly. We appreciate it. Thank you for that. Now, Sarah, I want to go back to what you were talking about when you found Stroller Strides, and you were in Arizona at the time. So tell us a little bit more about how you found it and what that was like showing up to those get-togethers.
Absolutely. So when I was out in Arizona, a friend had recommended to me something called Stroller Strides, and they said, this is where you can work out and bring your baby. And I remember calling the owner being like, I'm ready to sign up. She's like, no, just come to your first class. I'm like, no, I know I want to do this. I was so excited about the idea of meeting new moms and moving my body, and still while having my daughter with me. She was 10 months old at the time, and I just remember that period of time out there. She had so much separation anxiety. She was teething. There was so much going on. And I was in a new space. I had never been out in that area before. And I was spending, days just like Kate mentioned earlier, just me talking to my baby and knowing that I needed something if I wanted to stay sane. So being able to go to those meetups, and I went, I think, usually about 3 times a week, was amazing, because walking in, you just felt like the moms there were just like, oh, hey, I see you, I get you, and you're welcome here. And it was unlike anything I'd ever experienced before, and it was really powerful for me. So when I was getting ready to go back to Cleveland, they were like, "Oh, do you have one back in Cleveland?" And I was like, "Oh, the one we have is too far for me to drive every day." And like, "You should start one. You should start one." And I'm really grateful to them for kind of speaking that to me, because I was like, "Oh, no, that's not, it wasn't in the plan." And then all of a sudden I was like, wait, I could do this, and this would be so good for myself and for my daughter in building that community for me and in building that community for her as well.
Naveen, tell us a little bit more about your experience. So you said you had your first baby during COVID-19, and that is kind of what led to the podcast. Tell us more about starting up the podcast.
Yeah, so it was twofold. One, there was the cross country move that we had done. I didn't grow up in Northeast Ohio. I had a couple of businesses at the time that were in the real estate space here in Northeast Ohio, but I'd really just be here for holidays and family visits over a 4 or 5 year period. And when we ultimately made the decision to move here, my wife is from a big family, it felt like I was starting again. And, we had baby number one, like most folks on this panel probably experienced during COVID, is we were during a lockdown. There weren't broader communities that you could go out to, even if they did exist. And my wife also went through some postpartum things as well. Things that, we were discovering in real time, figuring out in real time, and certainly neither of us were prepared for. And I remember just thinking, these are the days before ChatGPT and throwing a bunch of questions in ChatGPT and hopefully getting some answers that stick. But I was like, how do you deal with these postpartum issues? And I had hundreds of questions every single day, but I had no one in my friendship group that even had babies at that point in time. And bear in mind, I'd kind of moved countries, states, all of that stuff. And so, it was few and far between the people that I could turn to. And generationally, my dad is from a generation that we didn't really talk about feelings of that nature either. And I knew that I wanted to be a different dad, not to say, I had a very loving dad growing up, but I just wanted to be a different dad that was able to, talk to my kids about specific feelings and things that I was experiencing growing up. And I'm also a dad of 4 girls. And so for me, that's a really important part of it as well. And so just having no one to kind of have these open and candid conversations with, I just remember thinking, well, what if I just start throwing these things out there? There's got to be a community of people that it will resonate with as well. And thankfully, in this journey, two of my now best friends are 2 of my co-hosts, and we just were like, what, we'll meet once a week. We'll go through things and questions and concerns that our group of friends are having now that folks are having kids, and things that we've aggregated over the last 5 or 6 years, and let's just talk about it. And it's amazing the response that we've had from just talking about things that seem banal and simple. But chances are, if you think it's banal, simple, and it's percolating through your head, chances are there are other dads out there who are feeling the same way.
Is there anything that surprised you that came up in conversation on the podcast, or even, off camera or off mic?
Yeah, I think the best way I'd frame it is I feel like we're all faking it. I feel like everyone is lying to you. And I felt like there were friends and family that did have kids prior to us that I felt like everyone says, oh, it's great, she sleeps through the night. Or it's great because, he's already eating solids. It's great, he's already crawling. And you sit there and you're like, no one shares warts and all. So my wife and I made a very concerted effort that when we had our first daughter, that we were honest about it. She's a colic baby. We're struggling because we're up from midnight to 4 a.m. most nights, and we're taking shifts. And we do an episode on the podcast about the roommates phase, where there is a period of time in the first 6 months where you feel like you're just strangers in the night, and you're like, one's on night shift, one's on day shift, one's, taking over diaper duty, the other one's taking over feed duty. And I think the thing I was most surprised by is the more open we were about that, family members and friends and others in our community who had previously been like, oh yeah, she does sleep through the night. We're like, actually, that first year was really tough. And it's just like, yeah, I know, I could tell, but it would have been nice if you had just been honest about it. And it just, it's obviously a personal story, but I think just for broader people, I think the more honest and authentic you are with people, it will resonate. And the 4 of us were talking off camera earlier that all the communities that we've created are authentically ourselves. And I think if you try and fake a community or you try and fake something that you're not, it just won't resonate with the broader audience.
You know, they say short-term memory is crucial to people continuing to propagate the species. I don't have that experience, but I have heard that. Trisha, I want to ask you, what are some of the conversations that come up in the LGBT center with Building a Village that are maybe unexpected that people might not necessarily anticipate?
Well, I think a lot of queer parents come to parenting in a non-traditional way. So surrogacy or in vitro fertilization. And so those, there's all kinds of online conversations and groups that are built around those things, which I was unaware of even before I came into the group. And so that is a lot of the conversations that we have are around those things, sharing daycare or school recommendations and experiences to know where those safe spaces are.
Has it been helpful for you personally to be a part of this group now?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And my kids are older. They're just about 13. The younger one turns 13 tomorrow, and 17. So I'm very much removed from that young child, new parent experience. But it's still, it's like, he might have just as well have been born yesterday, because all of those experiences are held in your mind at the same time. And so for me to come into that group with older kids and a little more experience, and be able to have that for the parents who come in, and I can say, it's going to be okay.
And new teenager, that's going to be an interesting
know.
experience. Happy early birthday to your
you.
soon-to-be teen. Kate, I want to ask you about some of the things that have come up for you in community. Anything surprising?
Yeah, I think it's what everyone's been saying. It's the more honest and open you are, the more folks resonate and connect with you across the board. And I had a really similar experience where it was, I became a stay-at-home mom when my son was about 10 months old. Day 2, I called other folks other moms that were stay-at-home moms, and I was like, I'm so sorry. Like, is this it? Like, this is what's happening? Like, you're not bored out of your mind? And they're like, oh yeah, I am. And I was like, well, like, why didn't you say this? Like, why are we all acting like this is okay? I was like, I think I made a mistake, like leaving my job. And it was a whole new wave of grief. So I feel like I had a little bit of a delayed reaction with some of the postpartum things that happened with my kids when I left my professional career, my professional identity, and shifted fully into new mom life. And the more open I was about that, I actually had a little bit of a reverse experience for a while where but people in my world were kind of frustrated and disappointed with me that I was saying, like, this is really hard. I'm not okay, because my life was really wonderful. It is really wonderful. And to be someone who chose to become a mom and then is not doing okay and was fully resourced, like that was hard for other folks. And they just wanted me to be fine. And I talk about this in my book, Through Her Eyes. I really unloaded a lot of like the emotions and the conversations that happened around that time into my book, and it's fiction, but the being told that I was supposed to be okay was one of the hardest challenges for me. And I think that's why I built a village of people who also might not have been doing okay. Like, they were all a little lonely, they were all struggling, and everyone else was saying you should be okay. And we were like, wait, oh, like, this is what's happening. And once you normalize what's hard, then it's not hard anymore. You're like, oh, I thought I was failing, but I'm actually having a very typical experience. And I remember being at the library. I organized social groups before story time. So really intentional opportunities, not just showing up at the library where we're all like with our babies. It's come an hour beforehand. Let's have coffee. Let's chat. Like, we'll bring snacks. And this was funded by Oberlin Kids, which is a United Way group out in Lorain County. And I remember joking with someone like, hey, I'm going to be late today. I went to pelvic floor therapy. This is a lot for the radio. I went to pelvic floor therapy because I can't jump on a trampoline like this. And another mom looked at me and they were like, I didn't know we were allowed to talk about that. And I was like, oh, are we not? Because like Altitude knows all about it. So so I found the more humor and the more kindness you brought to something, the more other people saw themselves through that. And it really normalizes this is hard. And if we do the hard together, it's easier. And that's where the village comes in. So.
First of all, thank you for talking about pelvic floor therapy. The Sound of Ideas is the place for it. So this is a welcoming space here. We could talk about it all. We appreciate it. If you are just joining us here on the Sound of Ideas, we're talking about pelvic floor therapy. We're talking about parenthood and the challenges that come along with that and the need for community, which studies have shown is crucial in this phase of life for that adult connection. If you have a story you'd like to share or a comment or a question, the number is 866-578-0903. You can also email us at soi@ideastream.org, or you can send us a message on Instagram. We're at The Sound of Ideas. We have a call now in from Cleveland. This is Todd in Ward 1. Todd, welcome to the show. Go ahead.
Hey, Stephanie, Trisha, Sarah, Kate. Is it Ian?
Naveed.
Naveed. Okay. So I have two questions. One, and this is motivated because people are sometimes loose with their definitions of loneliness. Could one or all of you define what you mean when you're using the word lonely within the limited amount of time that you have left? And two, did you find early on as a group that it was opportunity and time management that was your largest dilemma in being able to feel more focused as an individual and not so much just as a parent? And then one last question. Did you all plan your children prior to conception?
Thank you for the questions, Todd. Does anyone here feel moved to define your version of loneliness? Naveed.
Yeah, I'm happy to. I think, number one, thanks for the question. Thanks for the call in. I would say lonely from my standpoint is when you have a question, comment, or concern, and you don't have anyone to turn to. That's how I would define it.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think I would add mine was physical presence. I had a great group of people in my world who were text away or phone call away, but it was like physical interactions with folks. Because I wouldn't just say I was lonely when I was still working. It was more when you were at home, and especially during the post-COVID time when like parenting resources just didn't exist or caregiver opportunities to connect. So mine was more of like a physical experience.
Okay.
I would second all of that, but I would also mention that it's the loneliness in your particular experience. You're going through this experience, and again, that same thing. I have a wonderful network of family and friends, but if they weren't currently in that same position as I was, having an infant under one, it still felt very isolating, and that was loneliness.
The lack of common experience there.
Yeah.
Okay. Did anybody here have a pregnancy that was not planned, or was everyone planning to conceive when they did? Any surprises?
We had twins. We weren't expecting that.
Okay. That would be a big surprise. That was with the first pregnancy?
Our third pregnancy. So we
Okay.
have 4 girls, and then the last 2 are twin girls.
Okay. Todd's final question was the question of time management. And I would like to ask if anybody wants to weigh in there on the time management piece and how that complicates the ability to seek out that adult connection.
I think that there's a little bit of like process management that you really have to, there's a lot you have to let go of when you're trying to leave the house, like with children, to get anywhere on time or to manage some of those pieces. But I think there's this big piece of what I've heard a lot is that a lot of us were parenting when we initially started these village opportunities during the pandemic, and there was just a lack of opportunity as well. And so it was needing to build what didn't exist during that very specific time frame. So, but I will say one of the biggest pieces that I talk about when I build a village is letting go of all the expectations and obligations. So it's shifting, it's reducing what you need to manage because you do have much less limited time and resources as a new parent.
Okay. Something that your group, I think, focuses on is positivity. So how can you have these important conversations, Sarah, and then keep the positive framework?
So it's something that I'm very proud of with our crew. I think we have a really unique mix of positivity and vulnerability. So much like Naveed was sharing, I'll be the first one to say, last night was rough, or we had a hard time getting out the door this morning, or we're now in the strange new phase of parenting of something that I haven't dealt with yet, and I'm looking for that support. And I think that has opened the door. If I'm leading the group and I'm saying, oh man, this morning or this night or this stage, the moms are like, yeah, my morning was rough too. Or, oh, this new stage that I was in, this is what's going on with me. And it just opens the door, I think, for that feeling of the moms can relax a little bit. They go, oh, this is a space where I can say those things, kind of like Kate was saying with the pelvic floor therapy. It's like you open the door and they go, oh, awesome, this is a place where we can say that. And to the point about positivity, it's another, I think, unique feature of potentially, I think, pairing movement with the connection is that endorphins and exercise makes you feel good. And so things feel a little bit lighter after you finish your workout. And our workouts are also unique in that we do a lot to engage with the kids. So we are, not only are we working out and we're chatting with each other and we're connecting and all that great mom to mom connection, but we're also connecting with our kiddos. And so, there are classes where we're jumping up and down, singing songs about bananas and avocados, and then, we're tickling our kiddos and we're just doing really silly stuff. And it's hard to feel, it's difficult to not let that lift you up at least a little bit. And I've been doing this for almost 9 years, and I say to myself that even if I'm coming into a class and I'm dragging that day, or I'm not feeling good because we had a rough morning or whatever it is going on, there's very few times that I haven't felt better after connecting and being with my community and moving my body.
Trisha, let me ask you about your family situation. It has changed over time, and that's not unlike many people in the LGBTQ community. So tell us a bit about that.
Well, when I had my kids, I was married to my husband, Steve. He's a wonderful guy. And when the kids were 4 and 8, we split. And so I was single mom for a while. And Steve's a great co-parent. I don't want to take anything away from that. He's we balanced the kids pretty well, I think. And then recently I've come into another relationship. And so that is, again, another, learning curve to parent with someone who's never had kids before and getting used to what it's like to have a house that can be like chaos at times, which is what parenting is. It's, frequently it's chaos, controlled chaos maybe, but learning to kind of get used to all of that.
Okay. As a reminder, if you're just joining us here on The Sound of Ideas, we are talking about parenthood and the need for community and adult interaction while you are focusing on another life. If you want to be a part of this conversation, that number is 866-578-0903. You can also email us at soi@ideastream.org. You can also send us a message on Instagram at The Sound of Ideas. We have an email now in from Courtney. Courtney writes, my local La Leche League group was an amazing source of connection with other moms in the same stage of life when I had young children. It was an easy and comfortable place to go with my baby and later my second baby and her big sister. And this is a group where breastfeeding moms, babies, and siblings are all welcome. Courtney writes, the purpose is breastfeeding support, and the group was a fantastic resource for that, but conversations included all sorts of parenting topics and opportunities to connect with other adults. And Courtney says local groups can be found online, and leche is Spanish for milk, so it's La Leche League group for people who are interested in checking that out. So thank you very much, Courtney, for writing in on that. Now, I'd like to ask, and anyone who feels inclined to jump in, about the importance of having a parents' night out and having that interaction with your parenting partner. And Sarah, you're nodding, so I'll ask you to share.
So from the perspective of the you're talking about the parenting, the duo together, correct?
Yes.
Okay. I was initially thinking about we have a monthly mom's night out.
Also
so
that.
I'll just go for that first.
Sure.
But that is something that's been really critical, I think, too, is that our programs also often involve the baby, but when we're able to get out and get away from just the day-to-day difficulties, of parenting. And so we plan monthly events for the moms just to get together on their own. But to your question, it's also important to make sure that so much of your life when your baby comes is society's focus and your focus is the baby. And I think Naveed mentioned roommates, stranger passing in the night when you're going through a particularly tough time. It's important to find that time to reconnect.
Mm-hmm. Naveed, you mentioned it. Do you want to elaborate on it anymore about the need to, do the kids come to the podcast tapings, or is that separate?
The kids will come. They're not allowed to speak yet. It's just we don't know what they're going to say yet. I would say my wife stays at home. And I think being a stay-at-home is exponentially harder than anything that I have to do in my day-to-day. So to Sarah's point, like when it comes to mums' nights outs and community events and all of that stuff, her social calendar takes priority when it comes to the evening. So I try and make sure that from a Monday to Friday, within that 9 to 5 span, I'm able to get everything that I need to achieve achieved. And if there's things that my wife needs to get done, whether it's in the evenings or the weekends, that's her space to get that done too. That's not to neglect, dad's nights and friends' nights as well. So we try to every couple of weeks do a couples date night where we go out and reconnect. We try and avoid talking about the kids to the extent that we can, and we're always doing something that is, whether it's sports related or a new restaurant that we want to try or things of that nature. I think whether you are working in a corporate environment, a business environment, or staying home as a parent, just having that mental break is really important just to reconnect with your partner.
Kate, what do you think? What about the activities where maybe the kids aren't involved?
Yeah, I think those are really important because there's so much identity shift happening and you are actively rebuilding who you are as a parent, especially as a first-time parent. And you need to do that together in some capacity as well. And so what my partner and I found was that we would go to dinner and just kind of look at each other across the table, and we try not to talk about kids or but we also were finding we were having very different new parent experiences. And so what was super helpful for us was to go out and do something. So we would go axe throwing or we lived in Florida at one point, so we'd go to the beach. It was an actual activity. So we were building new experiences together as new parents versus it was, sometimes a little the conversation was on and off when you were just sitting across the table from someone. So having new experiences as your new identity was really helpful for us to continue to connect and build our relationship.
Trisha, can you tell us a little bit more about the way Building a Village operates? Parents can bring their children, but is there also an opportunity for children to be watched while parents are talking?
Yeah, so it's set up to have the parents in one room, and then down the hall is where the kids stay with, the older kids do art therapy with a trained art therapist, and there's volunteers who watch the younger kids. And it's a constant back and forth. The kids will start crying, and so a lot of times the kids will end up in the room with us anyway. But that doesn't seem to really have much of an impact on how the group functions. So
Okay. We are talking about parenthood and the need for adult interaction and community through these phases of life. If you want to be part of this conversation, the number is 866-578-0903. You can email us at soi@ideastream.org, or you can send us a message on Instagram at The Sound of Ideas. We have a call now from Oberlin. Katie in Oberlin, please welcome to the show. Go ahead.
Hi. I just wanted to give a shout out to early childhood music classes that you can have as young as age zero. Even we have pregnant people come to engage with music and each other. They have the babies interacting when they're able, and it also creates another opportunity for community and for mentoring. I think it's so important to have mentors in your life that are older, more experienced parents, to, show you the way forward and to give you activities to do with your child that you may not know, so that professional can step in and give ways to interact with your child that also create better bonding and better cooperation from the child. Because when you bounce that child, when you move with them, when you sing with them, they will be more bonded with you and tend to listen to you better. So I just want to give a shout out to the Musical Beginnings class in Oberlin, and as well other early childhood classes around Cleveland.
Thank you very much, Katie. We appreciate the comment. Let's go back to the topic of finding community in general. And Naveed, I want to ask you about this and resources that you found. You built your podcast. Was that because you were having a hard time finding other places for community? What's that look like for you now?
That's exactly right. Yeah, we at that time couldn't find anything that resonated with us. I think one of the comments I'd made earlier is you want groups that authentically represent yourselves. And there were a couple of groups out there that were kind of, let's meet, let's walk in the park. But it felt very superficial. It didn't really feel like it went much further than that. It almost felt like it was a group created by someone's wife who had forced the husband to just create the group and just walk around. And we'd all aimlessly walk around for an hour and then we'd just go back home again. So I was like, okay, let's create the group that we want the group to represent. And it was sort of unfiltered, experiences, and creating a community where dads could feel both vulnerable, self-deprecating, but also resources to be able to help their wives, whether it's postpartum, or be able to help their wives, whether it's going through a C-section, or help their wives and whatever, right? And there was one episode in particular that we did where one of the shared dad experiences, and hopefully no one rolls their eyes, is the hospital bed episode. And the episodes when wives give birth and the husbands have to, I see you rolling your eyes, where husbands have to sleep on the hospital bed, and it's a uniform hospital bed. It's a glorified recliner chair. So we did this episode, and shout out to a company called @DadPad. This company listened to the episode and they were like, well, we have a product for that. And they sent us this mattress insert that is uniform for all hospital beds that goes out there. And one of our co-hosts was about to have a baby. And so we had spoken about that. He actually ended up using that as well. And so the big thing for us was like creating a community where we could openly talk about experiences that we were having. And that's obviously, somewhat of a funny anecdote, but it's more about providing unfiltered views so that other dads feel comfortable, whether it's with us or within their own communities or parents or whatever, be able to have those conversations.
And for the ladies on the panel here, what about your parenting partners? Have they been able to find community? Is it something that they seem to be interested in finding? Or are they doing all right? Sarah?
I think that there's a couple answers. Is that my husband's lucky enough to have a really supportive group of friends at his office, so that I think helps him, and a lot of them are dads as well, so that has that shared experience. But also, like through my group, we also offer some family events as well. So we have a couple of workouts that actually David has actually participated in because his wife has been a member with us. And so where we'll show our partners, what the workouts are all about, invite them to a workout. And so that's another way for them to connect. And so actually my husband has connected with Naveed and many other husbands also through that program, because it's another way of just getting partners together in this space that we've created to find another sense of community.
And Naveed, you're focused on dads. Sarah, you're focused on moms. Kate and Trisha, is it more of a co-ed opportunity that you're building? What's it like? What's the demographic of your group like?
Yeah, mine is usually moms, and a lot of times it's stay-at-home moms or moms who are working part-time schedules, but who have primary parenting duties within their household.
Okay. What about at the LGBT Center, Trisha?
It's really a balance. We have moms, we have dads, we have non-binary people, we have transgender people who come in, and really, it's really all over. It's a very good balance among those groups.
Okay.
Yeah.
We've got an email now in from David. David writes, West Park Fairview YMCA hosts Parents' Night Out, where parents can have an evening to themselves, and for kids, there's an opportunity for swimming and other age-appropriate activities. Those include children ages 2 to 5 through age 13. So that's at the West Park Fairview YMCA. Thank you for that, David. Here's something that was brought up from one of the callers was pregnant people actually coming to the early music education classes. Do any of you experience that in your group, people who are expecting?
Yes. So when it comes to prenatal mamas, a lot of times we have moms who have their first kiddo and then they become pregnant with their second, and so they're still coming to the workouts, and they're still getting the benefit of the workout and also the benefit of the community. And so we're we're trained in prenatal exercise, knowing what's safe for the moms, like what they can do, and so they feel like they can come to a class and go, okay, I'm here, I'm safe, I won't work myself too hard or do something I'm not supposed to, because this is I'm in a place that someone tells me, okay, this is, make sure that you dial back this exercise, or this is what's safe for your level of pregnancy. So that to that point. And then also what I love to always say, and so for anyone listening out there who might be currently pregnant, don't feel like you have to wait till your baby's here to check out the program. We've had a few moms come through that are pregnant with their first, and they join us to get their community started and built before the baby arrives. And I think that's key, because if you don't have that and then your baby comes, and then you can find yourself in those first couple months going, oof, this is new. I feel isolated. But if you know that, okay, as soon as I'm feeling better after having my baby, I'm going to go back to that village of moms, and they're going to be there and they're going to get it.
Okay. We have about a minute left, so I want to give everyone an opportunity here to share where people can find more. So, Tricia, where can people find more?
Go to the LGBT Center of Greater Cleveland website and look for the activities tab, and they will have a link there.
Okay. And how about for you, Kate?
Yeah, my Instagram page is the best at Dr. Kate Sarakis on Instagram. So I share out events that we're doing.
Okay. Spell that for us.
Yeah, so it's Dr. Drkate. My last name is Sarakis, so Sorokas. And I have something on there about my next event. It's Sage and Honey in Sugar and Falls on June 6th.
All right. Thanks very much. Naveed?
You can find us on all streaming platforms, Spotify, Apple, and the like. And then our Instagram page is at Chief Dad Officers. We're also available on Facebook, YouTube, and all streaming platforms at Chief Dad Officers.
Okay. And for you, Sarah?
So if you're a mom on the east side, I think the best bet would be to go to our Instagram to get an idea of who we are, what we do, and that's at fitformom.beechwood.shakerhts. But if you are a mom in the greater Cleveland area or listening anywhere, fitformom.com, put in your zip code, and you can find a chapter nationwide.
Okay. Thank you very much to our panel. We appreciate the conversation about community in parenthood.